Welcome to. Okay, great shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Rackets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly breakdown of everything happening across the Division I college tennis world. Of course, here on Tuesday nights, we break down the Division I women's action and weekend number one of the 2024 college tennis postseason is now officially in the books. What a fun weekend of regional action we were treated to across the country, whether it was drama in the first round, upsets in the second round, top seeds looking the part of national title contender, or whatever storyline your heart was looking for. I like to think you got it over the course of the 3 days of action. Of course, here on tonight's show, want to break down those 3 days of action for all of you listeners who might have missed out on something. There was a lot of tennis that happened across the country. So, of course, here tonight, we want to make sure you are up to date on all of the upsets, up to date on everything that unfolded on weekend number one. Of course, joining me to help do all of that, plus, of course, preview next weekend's super regional round of 16 action is the man who has joined me each and every week here on this show, a man who, of course, I am very much looking forward to seeing down in Stillwater. Of course, all of you know him as the returning champion of returning champions on our Cracked Rackets podcast, founder of the No Ad, No Problem blog, and of course, podcast, our on the ground reporter for so much of this college tennis season. It's my dear friend, co-host of The Deciding Point, John J. Parsons, joining us once again. Jay, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. Weekend number one of the postseason in the books. Lived up to the hype, I thought. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought you described it pretty well. We got a little bit of everything. There were some 4-3 electric matches. There were seeds on cruise control, seeds on upset alert, weather delays. So it definitely had all of the makings of an eventful and really good and solid first weekend.
Yeah, I also think the seeds are being planted for a really fun home stretch. A lot of good super regional matchups again for us to get excited about today. And again, a lot of fun matchups still alive as we look to move forward through the rest of this tournament as well. And maybe more importantly than anything, Jay, transfer portal season has begun. So all of these teams are on notice, right? You want to win. You want to impress all those players out there looking for their next home. Jay, we got a lot of tennis to talk about tonight, so let's get to it. Let's break down weekend number one of the 2024 NCAA Division I Women's Tennis Tournament. Let's start where we have to start. We had a couple of upsets for a couple of host seeds, and maybe it wasn't the host seeds you predicted that would have some struggles. And certainly it was a pleasure for me to be on the call for both of the upsets we had on the weekend. And both of them, I believe, were Sunday morning matches as well. So really got our day going. Of course, the two upsets, number 12, Ohio State, number 14, Florida knocked off. Let's start with a matchup we've seen now 4 years in a row. Vanderbilt, Ohio State. I thought Vanderbilt, particularly impressive, by the way, was worth noting in their in their round one 4-1 victory over Wake Forest. Like not a shrug of the shoulder sort of victory, right? For the doors to kind of send notice, hey, we're ready for this NCAA tournament to begin. And look, this matchup over the last half decade has featured some really dramatic doubles points. I think last year it was a 90-minute doubles point that maybe just ended 12 minutes ago between those two that really got that going. It was another really good doubles point, couple of sets split between the two teams before Vanderbilt ultimately able to clinch that doubles point. After that, singles was a war, and credit to the Buckeyes. They came out after dropping doubles. They won 4 first sets in singles. They ultimately get 3 straight set wins along the way. Credit to Shelly Berzniak. I don't remember if it was 0-1 or 0-2, but that
Oh, and
match
one.
was, yeah, match was never in doubt. At the number 4 spot, Ratliff was down, I think 3-4, either Love 40. I think it was Love 40 in that second set. She's able to hold, break, hold, close out her match at 3 singles. And man, Audrey Spencer, that second set was a ride. She's up 5-1, 4-love and 5-1, ultimately grinds her way through that set 6-4 with a break to get a straight set win. So that's how the Buckeyes got their three. But man, Vanderbilt was impressive in some spots, in particular, Holly Staff at 5, a spot they had to attack on the day, given some of the ups and downs of freshman Taya Chavez. I mean, she was dominant from the start. Straight set victory there. That's point number 2. The swing match, in my opinion, Bridget Stammel, who grinds out a straight set victory over freshman Luciana Perry. And then, see, I really did call this match because I do remember it. And then, Jay, it's a battle of all Americans to decide it. Wouldn't have it any other way. Arena Contos, CB Moore, Contos on her home courts, deciding set, last match in Columbus. Like it was all there for a Buckeyes scripted, dramatic 4-3 victory. And CB Moore said no thank you, Jay, from a set down 3-set win to clinch Vandy's 4-3 victory. It was a really good weekend for the Doors, a team that had nothing break their way. Felt like all 2024 season long. Jay, they're still alive and they're playing next weekend in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it was an impressive performance from them. You walked us through it very nicely. That little recap, they could paint over some nice clips from this match. But you're asking that question to coaches right now in NCAA Sweet 16 press row, 3-3 deciding match, third set. Who are the players you want on? If you were to ask Ohio State head coach Melissa Schaub, unfortunately, you won't get to because she didn't advance the Sweet 16. But if you were to ask her that question, I think she would answer Irina Kontos on her home courts there in her final year. That's the match they wanted, 2 top 20 players. And unfortunately, a undercurrent of these NCAA matches is that this is the last time these players are playing on their home courts, and certain players react to that differently. It can be very emotional, and unfortunately, Kontos started missing a little bit more in that third set than we're used to seeing her lock in, but a good victory for Vanderbilt, who is now quite familiar with going to Columbus as an unseeded team and advancing to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, the whole thing down the home stretch was, with all due respect, just Arena didn't have a consistent weapon she could hurt CB Moore with, and it was a credit to CB, who's been quietly really good all season long, 13-4 at the top spot for the Doors. I don't think we're talking enough, Jay, about how surprising it is that at the end of this all, Vanderbilt's a top 16 team. And look, I mean, again, it was a theme certainly on Sunday. Not only was Ohio State 3-all with Vanderbilt, Michigan was in serious trouble against Notre Dame, and that's a match we'll talk about more later. But the idea of that Big Ten season, not even the outdoors, but just the Big Ten season, Ohio State was not as calloused going into that as Vanderbilt was of late, because they had to grind through so many tough SEC matches. How could you not wonder if that played a factor down the home stretch of that? Now, I do want to emphasize, man, Ohio State played well enough to win. Like, they dropped a doubles point. They came out, they won 4 first sets in singles. That's how you respond, like, to a deficit like that. But man, tough, tough. And in the end, Vanderbilt's still standing. Like, just not an outcome I saw, given like Vanderbilt hadn't really had an inspiring win on their resume until this.
Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt's been uninspiring since indoors last season. So,
Sure,
yeah, they
sure.
have not had an inspiring win. But look, what you outline here is like embedded into the fabric of Big Ten tennis is being soft in the NCAA tournament, because these top Big Ten teams aren't that calloused as they go through these Big Ten tournaments and also the regular season. And you saw that get Ohio State. We haven't seen them have a very tough match other than Michigan. So, yeah, they're going to be less callous than a team like Vanderbilt, who's taken a lot of lumps in the SEC. And Michigan didn't do in themselves or the conference any favors to kind of buck the narrative that the Big Ten is going to be a factor here in NCAA's. But nevertheless, a really good performance from Vanderbilt, who I guess maybe that one inspired performance is beating a Diana Schneiderless NC State at kickoff last season. But
Yeah. Well, you said since indoors, so again, that didn't violate your time frame.
that's
Uh,
true. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah. You could argue there the women's South Carolina, like 14-10, a lot of close matches. They're finally on the right side of one. Like again,
That's
that's a
so disrespectful to South Carolina.
uh well, maybe they've had higher highs, but the roller coaster. Anyways, that's funny.
No, no,
Uh
like Vanderbilt has not had highs this season, right? Like this is
Yeah,
their high. This is the South
well,
Carolina
now
men's
they
team.
have. Yeah, now they've had a high.
The South Carolina men's team that struggled with
All right.
injuries.
Yeah. All right. All right. All right. Yeah, we can leave that there just because we have a lot of tennis to discuss, but I don't deny your points being made here. Again, it's really impressive stuff. 14-10. They're through the Sweet 16. It's the second time in 3 years they've upset the Buckeyes in Columbus. It's the fourth straight year we've seen it in Columbus. Enough. Like
Enough.
yeah, that's good enough. But yeah, a credit to Vanderbilt. That's a really inspiring victory. And then Jay, again, we throw a lot of takes out on the dartboard throughout the course of the season. I'm feeling good about my Miami take after they go to Florida from a doubles point three first sets down, grind their way to a grimy 4-3, 3.5 hour grinded through victory, epitomized by the turnaround 3 sets from Audrey Bach Collins. The swing match in this one, freshman Maria Paula Vargas for her to get that win at 3 over Benta Spey. I mean, again, talk about a clutch.
Six.
Did I say 3? I at 6 in 3 sets. Excuse me, for Miami. That was to me the swing match. Noel winning the top 10 battle with Galis at 1. Again, the other one, Shinyi Nong, just really gave Kavia Lopez the business at the 5 spot. It just wasn't Kavia's day. The serve wasn't there. The forehand wasn't there. It was spraying. It was odd to see as it was unfolding, particularly after Florida looked really good in the doubles. Just crisp performances everywhere. I thought it was a really high level. Again, Florida did take straight set, three first sets, excuse me, straight sets at 2 and 3. Easy for Briggs. She was dominant on the day. But Jay, this is what Miami does. I tried to be a little bit more succinct in that summary. This is what Miami does. Like the moment Bach Collins forced that third set, and I think there was 2 holds of serve throughout the course of that third set. Like the moment she held serve that first time, you just knew Miami had it. Like that's where they wanted to be. I'd argue that's who they want on the court, as she's now 16-1 overall on the year. Miami, they hosted last year. They got knocked off in round 2. Now they go on the road. Good 4-1 win over FIU in round 1 as well. Like, again, this team has now played 8 matches on the season, Jay. All 8 matches have been impressive. They're through to the round of 16. What'd you think?
Yeah, you're right that first round was tricky. FIU
Mm.
coming in with so much confidence. They had beaten that FIU team earlier this season, so FIU coming in with a little bit of chip on their shoulder, but they do get a point on the board this time. But yeah, this was a I think two things can be true, Gruskin, where you are can be very happy that your Miami take has like aged well. And on the flip side is like it's a really bad showing from Florida.
Sure.
And I think this is definitely the underperformance that we talked about. Um, I'll talk about the Miami stuff first. Is like I feel like I never really know what Miami I'm gonna get. I know they're gonna grind, but like
Yeah.
they can also show up and like turn out some pretty bad performances. Like notably when they go on the road to Virginia this season, wasn't even close. Um, so you never really know. And like Alexa Noel as well, like she can be pretty volatile both on the court and in her results, but they really showed up. I think it helps that they are two teams that know each other really well, probably disliked each other as well. But yeah, it was a good showing from Miami, who did need a little bit of postseason momentum, having struggled these past few years.
Yeah, the state of Florida, pride was on the line. If not,
Exactly.
yeah, competitive dislike certainly between the two programs. There's no doubt it's a disappointing loss for this Florida team. A year where like I don't know how they didn't they didn't have that many bad losses. Like this is the first one that'll really sting. But again, for what Florida has been for the last 2 decades, or really the last 4 decades, however far back you want to go, they didn't have that many inspiring wins either. Like definitely an uninspiring national indoor performance after getting there. Now they bow out in round 2. It's definitely tough to look at this season as anything other than a disappointment, like given the experience they had. And let's also be clear, they were never fully 100% healthy. Like it felt like at any point in this season. That is a big asterisk to put next to whatever autopsy you want to do on the year. But yeah, like whether it's because of that, for whatever reason, it just felt like they never got things fully going. Like they got close there come the SEC tournament. What was it, that 4-2 result with Texas A&M? But a little short there. Obviously, they come up a little bit short here. Again, they're up 3-2 with 2 courts left on court with Spey against a freshman in Vargas. And again, first set, I think it was Dahlstrom who faced Bach Collins. I apologize if I'm getting the names wrong here,
Bob
Jay.
Collins played Dudney.
Dudney. It was one of the D's. Yeah, like Dudney won that opening set. And again, it's a credit to Miami. They're that, again, that thorn in your back that you can't reach and you're trying the itch that you can't scratch. They survived, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like that's, I guess, who walks away more disappointed, Ohio State or Florida?
Well, Florida's used to this at this point. They've lost in the second round for the last 6 years. So this is a par for the course performance from a Florida team that prior to that, 2002 to 2017, had only lost in the second round once. So Florida's used to this. Ohio State, I think, is I don't know. I would go. Well, it doesn't get. I don't get the sense Florida's that disappointed. So
I
I would
think
go
the
with
answer
Ohio State.
I think the answer is Florida because if you actually take a step out and look, it's really disappointing for Ohio State because it's the final year you have Arena Contos and everything she's meant to the program. But 5 of their 6 starters are back next year. Like they were kind of a year ahead of schedule with Chavez, Perry, Spencer all playing this
Totally.
year. So
Yeah,
I actually think I'd go Florida. Like again, no
I
more
think that's a good.
yeah, no more
It's a good
Briggs
case.
and again, just where they were all season long. It's the first time they've taken a loss like this, and obviously disappointing to have it come in the round of 32. But man, credit to Miami. Again, they've just kind of been lingering there all season long and through to the round of 16, a date with Michigan ahead. I know that is certainly a fascinating round of 16 matchup we will discuss when we get to our preview, but we got a lot more tennis to discuss before we get there, Jay. Those were the 2 upsets we saw on the weekend. 14 other host seeds all managing to advance to the round of 16. Let's talk about how they got there now. Let's talk through the escape artists. A couple of them certainly impressive in Texas from 4 first sets down in singles. They escape via rain delay, with some rain delay help, 4-3 over Georgia Tech. You also have the Michigan Wolverines doubles, 3 first sets down. They escape 4-2 victories over Michigan. Which of the 2 Houdiniacs intrigued you, or I guess caught your attention more?
Well, caught my attention more probably Texas, just
All right, let's
because
start there.
okay, because that match was so prolonged, and you could see some writing on the wall where they Georgia Tech came out hot in singles, and we had some rain delays, and so like it was like really waiting for this thing to finish. So that caught my attention, and it also the fact that Sabina Zainalova was back in singles for Texas for the first time in over almost 2 months. I think March 3rd was her last singles match against Oklahoma. So for her to be back in the lineup and then for Texas to struggle so mightily against Georgia Tech was very noticeable, particularly that it was at home. But also caught my attention. You had the Texas men out there as well, who shout out to them. I mean, they have been so instrumental in these Texas women's title runs. I mean, I know you were there in 2021 when they were cheering on Peyton Stearns next to her court against Pepperdine. They were out there squeegeeing the courts for the women. I can tell you this, very, very few men's programs would one, go out and watch their women, two, stay through a rain delay, and three, squeegee the courts to help get that match out there. So, yeah, that one caught my eye.
Yeah, classy human beings on that Texas men's tennis team, trying to build that good juju with the tennis gods as well. They succeeded certainly with their performance, giving them an assist on Sunday. I'll tell you what, I was a given Roach hold away from, and what, a doubles tiebreak away from nailing the match calculus on this one exactly, Jay. Where, and again, watching as much of Georgia Tech as I do, Lee and Charborough have been their anchors, and they looked the part. Certainly Charborough to get that win in before the rain delay, 4-2 over Ataya Pashkaleva, who really hasn't lost much in 2024. Carol Lee gets broken back by Zainalova for 4-all, breaks, holds, closes out the match in straights. And at that moment, again, Given Roach is up a set in 5-3, like serving for the match. And you thought, oh my God, with Bilchev up 3-love in the third. And by the way, Malek Garoppolo 0 for 9 on game point chances in those first 3 games. Bilchev winning all 3 deciding points she's able to earn. And from that, it was just like, all right, she's winning this third set. The gods have decided. It really felt like, oh my God, if Roach holds here and wins this match over Avruzzi at 6, this upset is over. Like Georgia Tech is knocking out Texas and advancing. And man, credit to Vivian Avruzzi. Did not let that happen. And I know given Roach, the freshman, was dealing with some cramping issues down the home stretch, but the aggression Avruzzi played with from 3-5 down all the way through the ending of that third set, I was so impressed by the redshirt sophomore. Like, if that's who they're getting down the home stretch, it's going to be really hard to find 4 wins on this Texas team. 3, everyone can find. I feel like all these teams can find 3, but 4, man, if they're up a doubles point and Zainalova is healthy, like this is a team that was flirting with a top 5 ranking all season long. That was an escape act. Impressive stuff.
Yeah, given Roach had to get it done in 2, and the moment Overutsky split, you felt like it was over.
Yeah.
And credit to her. I mean, she took that match. It felt like in her hand and said, "I'm not losing this match." And she has much more experience. This is a player who has played in a national championship final over a freshman and given Roach who is on a Georgia Tech team that hasn't had that experience. Certainly not during this season. So in some ways you would expect that, but it's still extremely impressive to see, particularly given the momentum shifts where Rapalou was starting to go down and starting to go down quickly for Ovrutsky to come back. Really impressive performance from Texas. And I'm curious to see what we get. Now they have a very interesting Sweet 16 match, but they survive.
That UCLA matchup, a rematch, of course, from earlier in the year where Texas was only able to field 4 players, is a rematch we deserve, given it wasn't a complete matchup the first time these two teams played. And obviously, a lot has changed in the 4 months since. But yeah, it's again, would have been disappointing to see the Shavatapan, Rapalou core that, and even Pashkaleva, she played in that 21 final. Like,
Yeah, an
yeah.
honorary Longhorn in that final, even though she was
Yeah,
playing for Pepperdine.
I mean, delivered a point to them, so like it doesn't not count, I guess. It didn't deliver a point, by the way. She fought her tail off. That was an amazing third set. Anyways, Texas escapes. Like they, that's a gutsy win. That's a put some hair on the chest sort of win again from the Longhorns to advance, and certainly looking forward, yeah, to their Sweet 16 matchup against the UCLA Bruins. Jay, the other escape act, of course, was in Ann Arbor, where there was a 15-minute window where you thought, especially with Piper Charney losing her first set, where you thought, oh my God, like Michigan might actually lose this match. And, again, it's a credit to Notre Dame, who jumped on a clearly nervy Michigan team from the start and got out to some big leads in doubles. Now, Michigan almost managed to flip the script and got it to 5-all at 3 before Notre Dame was able to put that set away 7-5 and take that doubles point. But man, they came out and they took 3 sets, right? First set's at 2, 4, and 6 for the Irish. Now, again, the good news, I guess, if you're a Wolverine, Kari Miller looked really good at the top spot. Julia Fligner looked really good at 3. And then, when Lily grinded out that breaker for a first set at 5, you thought, all right, Michigan's back in the fight, especially because at that moment, I think Jaden was still up in her first set at 4. I mean, again, ultimately, the Wolverines were able to get straight set wins at 1, 3, and 5. And then I was looking at the number. I think you listened to the Ronnie pod more recently than I had the conversation. Piper gets win number 24 or something crazy like that on the season. It's like 24-2 now, which is a ridiculous number for a freshman. I don't care what position you're playing. But Michigan ultimately escaped, and Notre Dame's a really solid team. I mean, they beat Miami, who's also in this Sweet 16 a couple of weeks ago. What's your level of concern for the Wolverines after the win?
It's so funny because during that 15-minute stretch, I was ready to write the eulogy on the Michigan women and come in here and talk
I
about
bet you were. It's
the
in the
Big
notes app.
Ten. Yeah, exactly. You could see the notes app draft, but uh, this really wasn't an escape. But I think you nailed it right when Lily Jones took that set. This is a reference I think maybe only you will get, but it felt like when Carson Tangillig took the tiebreak against
Yeah,
Fenning at
yeah.
Miami, where it's like things were going really bad for a while, and then take tiebreak, you take a sigh of a deep breath. But yeah, it was a tough start, but then they started to really flex. And Piper Charney came back out in that third. It was early and even, and then she started to run away with it. Same with Lily Jones. Yeah, of course, a surprising loss anytime Gala loses, but it was a bad doubles point, and then they rebounded pretty quickly. I actually feel like in hindsight, it was a really mature performance from a Michigan team, particularly a mature performance from some of their young players in Lily Jones and Piper. I don't have concerns about them moving forward, actually.
What a zag. Like that was not the take I was expecting out of you. Look, they didn't play well. Like I think they would be the first to admit it.
Right.
And I think every good team has one of those escapes in an NCAA tournament run. And I'll tell you what, to get to do it at home in the first weekend, in the first match, like you hope this is the one where you came out a little bit nervy, where you get that out of the way. You're ready to play. Obviously, it was announced that day publicly that Taryn, longtime associate head coach, and Ronnie's partner in crime will be leaving after 17 years with the program. That's something we talked about, by the way, in our press row. And thank you for plugging it. You want to hear from all of these coaches. Hopefully, we'll have conversations with them all on the Cracked Interviews podcast by Friday. Yeah, like the only concern is that first 40 minutes looked a lot like minutes 35 through 75 of the Georgia match. Like that's the only concern is that's the last time I saw Michigan look like that. They didn't look like that at all at the national indoors.
But the difference is they're doing it now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, but you got it out of the way and you won and you have a week to be like, all right, we all agree. We know what went wrong there, right? Like it's better to happen and have it be able to talk about it now and have another week to recover than have that happen in Stillwater and wake up and you don't have practice the next day. So they get away with it. And that's why I feel like, okay, this is why I like that we're back live. And again, all of you tuning in live, feel free to throw your questions, your comments, your reactions in the chat. When I called this the escape artist, there was a smile on your face that you're like, Gruskin, I'm proud of that title. Like you seem to offer me an approval
Well, how would you know? You sent me the outline.
there.
So maybe I'm
You
just
know,
trying to
you were ready
gas
to
you up a
fake the
little bit.
final.
Yeah.
You know what's good? Did you hear? You probably haven't listened to the Simon Earnshaw episode yet, but I was asking for highlights of the year, and he goes, one, having Chris on an episode with him, and he goes, trying to get you to break during that episode. And I was like, that's a really good one. I was like, that's funny. I try to do that all the time too, Simon. So yeah,
We should have
again,
tried to get Simon to break on that one.
that's not hard.
It
Texas,
was hard
Michigan.
that night.
Yeah. Texas, Michigan, escape artists there, both through again with 4-3, 4-2 wins respectively. Next category here, Jay. Well, then, that was impressive. Couple of 4-0, 5-4-0 results I did not see coming in. Again, I want to go through these opening rounds quickly because I do want to spend some time previewing the Sweet 16. Try and do all of that in under an hour as well. But, Jay, I think the most impressive 4-0 that I didn't see coming was Tennessee's 4-0 over Duke because that was obviously a match everyone had circled upset alert, like that Tennessee region. How could you not? And thank you to you for offering this fact via, I forget who your source was. You can out it if you'd like. Everyone from the Tennessee region in the kickoff weekend through to the Sweet 16, Vandy, Miami, USC, Tennessee. That's hilarious. Like, that factoid is right up my alley, Jay. And so really enjoyed learning that. But, again, um, Tennessee 4-0 Duke. Like, that's really impressive stuff. It wasn't on my feed. I'm sure you followed it a little bit more closely than I was able to. What'd you see in that one? What'd you think?
Well, they didn't just 4-0. This was one of the least close matches we had in the second round. I mean, they take the doubles point. They were up in all of the doubles matches, and they take 5 first sets. They drop one, and then they finish it out in straight sets. They get a straight set win, 6-2, 6-1 at number 6, 6-1, 6-4 at number 3, and then they get the clinch at 5, 6-1, 6-4. So this was a comprehensive performance from Tennessee. If you were to like power rank and just do like stock rising, like Tennessee, I think took a massive jump forward in stock rising, and there was a quiet confidence I felt like when we were talking to Coach Ojeda on the selection show um, interview, and to knock out such an experienced Duke team who has been here before, who we talked about was upset last season. This was, to me, the most impressive just overall performance for this Tennessee team to get back into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Scotty B asking when's the last time Duke didn't reach the Sweet 16. Of course, last year they were knocked off by UCLA in round two. I think it's the context of that that made how they lost this match for Duke particularly disappointing. Not just the straight sets at 3, 5, and 6. Cabezas is up 6-4, 5-3 at 1. Tennessee's up 7-6, 3-2 at 2. Even Katie Cott, after that 6-1 first set, she drops her second set 6-2. And at that point, again, it was just a tsunami of vols like coming at them. Um, that is such an impressive one for this Tennessee team. That in a lot of respects, like everything we said about Florida, could have applied to Tennessee's season, right? To this point where they've beaten everyone who by ranking they should beat. They've grinded out a lot of tight wins, but again, they beat the Vanderbilts of the world. They beat the Alabamas of the world. They beat that next, like just below top 16 tier South Carolinas of the world in the SEC. Now they go out and beat a Duke as well. Like it's kind of actually par for the course. If you looked at their resume all season, this is the kind of win, never in this fashion, but this sort of team that they have beaten all year long. And again, I started smiling as you were answering. This match was so good for Tennessee. I'm going to reveal a text you sent me. I apologize, Jay. This match was so good that Jay texted me. He goes, "Hey man, is Oklahoma not the idea of you texting me? Hey man, I don't know why
And in
that's what
that
I used to.
tone too.
Yeah,
Hey
like
man.
yeah, you know what? I was trying to get into character. Um, the point is, I got a text from Jay asking, "You think Oklahoma State's on upset alert?" And man, did that text put a smile on my face, Jay? Because like I'll tell you what, you win a match like this, how could you not have everyone's attention? And like I will say, Tennessee played a match like they're going to play against Oklahoma State last year in College Station against A&M. Like one of those like, hey, like kind of means everything to this A&M group because this group has been together for a little bit and they're making this push. And, again, they were a little bit more familiar with that team than they will be with Oklahoma State. But like this team will not be afraid of going on the road in that round of 16 scenario. You started talking me into it, is why that text got me so excited.
I'm fully ready. Let me know when we get to that part of the pod because I'm ready to go all in. But there's a lot of reasons for why that's going to be a very interesting match. 2016, Scotty B, last time Duke did not make the Sweet 16.
Oh, all right. Well, there we go. I appreciate it. Again, some really, it was really impressive by the Vols. How about the Aggies as well? Like speaking of Texas A&M, played their best match of the season, 4-0 over Oklahoma. We saw the switch in the doubles lineup. Luciana Perez now with Carson Branstein at 2. They went Morales, Kieran at 3, keeping Kupris, Stoyana at 1. They ultimately get wins at the 1 and 3 spots, and then I think it was 5 first sets ultimately going the way of Texas A&M. Everyone but Staker. They close out 3 straight set victories to advance relatively drama free. We'll hear it in the interview. It hasn't, or maybe it has come out given I took a nap after the Mark Weaver interview because I was very tired. After a long day of interviewing, Westhoff might have put it out on Cracked Interviews since then. Anyways, I think you can hear him talk about what you're chuckling at my nap.
I'm chuckling at the timing of your nap. Uh,
A pre-show nap is right up my alley. Let me tell you, if you were to actually find me in between matches at the indoors or NCAAs, oftentimes I'm trying to sleep at my desk for like a solid 4 minutes before we start rocking and rolling again. Anyways, that was a really good. Like you hear him saying people made fun of him because he was like, "Oh, this is going to be a good match." Like you were scared. You said Oklahoma could come up here and beat us, and he was like, "I thought they were going to," and I think we all thought that going in. But that was again, it's a little flex from the Brandstein added Aggies here this past weekend. What did you see?
yeah, I thought this was the best performance we've seen from Texas A&M probably all season.
Mm-hmm.
They looked really good in this performance against Oklahoma, who absolutely is a team that could be in this conversation had they gone to another team. I believe when you look at the Ohio State loss, the Florida loss, those are teams Oklahoma could have beaten. And I thought Texas A&M really played well. It was good to see Carson Branstein healthy. But yeah, they continue to be the topic of conversation. They announced that associate head coach Jordan Sabo
Yeah.
leaving Texas A&M for the Auburn head coaching job, like the weekend of regionals. So that could have really gone awry for the players on this team to have to play through that information, but they looked really dangerous. And again, we got a really fun one for them in the next round.
Can we agree? Dynamite hire by Auburn. Like that, I really like that decision because again, this A&M team 21, 22, 23 lost like 6 matches total. And I think all of those matches were national indoors or NCAA matches. And, again, I asked Coach Weaver about that on our interview, what Jordan's meant to that program. He's very open in how significant he has been. I think that's a slam dunk hire, Jay. I was definitely surprised by the timing. But I enjoy I think that's a good pick for this Auburn team that obviously, given what they do in other sports, like that's a program that is already, by the way, been top 16 for half a decade now. Like that's a program that I think with this hire should stay there moving forward.
Yeah, and Jordan has built up a reputation being a fantastic recruiter, two-time assistant coach of the year recently as well. So I'm sure that he will have that program staying in that top 16, if not further, for a very long time. It's always a little sad when you see like a Texas A&M or any school lifer go somewhere else. I'm like, whoa, this is a little strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good hire staying in the SEC. So the congrats to him.
The roots for Coach Weaver's coaching tree expanding. That's how I framed it. But yeah, I mean, and again, the A&M team's getting better. Like Luciana Perez is better with every match that she plays. I think they're pretty comfortable. All right, Morales is our sixth. That's where we're rolling with, and just that confidence that injects into a player. You're starting to see that as well. I mean, I think Brandstein was submitted at 2 this weekend too, and Mary back up to 1. Like, all right,
We'll
in.
see if it
Yeah,
sticks.
yeah, sign me up for it. I'm excited to see how it all unfolds. It's gonna be good tennis. Again, this A&M team is starting to look like we thought they might at the start of the season. And the big thing that they answered this weekend, not only did they look like a national championship inner circle team, like the talent on their roster dictates they could. Brandstein was healthy, was the big thing as well this weekend after that hip injury at SECs. And so, again, wow, that was impressive. 4-0. They knock out Oklahoma, advance to the Sweet 16. What about Cal? The only thing competitive in that Cal Auburn match was the doubles point, and it was a very competitive doubles point. But after that, Jay, Cal able to earn 3 straight set victories, and the thing that's sneaky impressive about this Cal team, they've got some real depth. Like they've got 7 options they can play on the right day, and obviously Ivanov and Viller Moeller, El Solo, Wiersholm, if they're all healthy, they're all playing. That's the top 4 for sure. But Maumoshika, Lon Mi, I apologize,
Pasola.
but yeah, Berta Pasola, I believe is the name. Thank you for the reminder. That's legitimate options, 5 through 7. And again, it's postseason time, so Lon Mi's my 6. If I'm putting out that lineup every day, I'm talking to Amanda, head coach Augustus, excuse me, tomorrow. So I'm excited to ask what she plans to do in this Georgia matchup. But man, like that's good stuff for over an Auburn team that we said could absolutely go to Berkeley and give Cal a real push. And they absolutely did in doubles. But after stealing that early momentum, Cal never let it go. That's a really impressive victory for another one of those. This might be their 8th match played of the season teams.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for this Auburn team because the strength of the lineup is kind of
Yeah.
inverse. And you're right, Cal is very, very good down there at the lower half of the lineup. And you have former number 1 player Jessica Sola playing at 4. The 4, 5, and 6 is brutal for them, and that is where Auburn has struggled a little bit. And then the top of Auburn lineup seemed like they took a while to acclimate to a match that was pushed many times throughout the day due to rain, ultimately playing pretty late relative to what they're used to in Alabama. So, yeah, tough ending to a tough season for Auburn, but this Cal team continues to be just quietly very solid everywhere.
You poo-pooed me earlier. Is Cal a better Miami?
In what way?
They
The,
grind, like put
well,
3 hours on the clock. They are going to grind you down. Like just that sort of team that I don't like. They're
no,
not. No, you don't think so?
no. I mean, I like who fits that mold. Like, I mean, Viller Moeller, sure, but outside of that, I mean, they got like
Lon
Malmushika.
Me.
Yeah,
Lon,
Lami's gonna she crushes the ball though.
Yeah, there
Mal
are times when
Mushika
she
crushes
wallops the
it.
ball. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
you know,
Katya
Jessica
likes to move
Alsola
that
is not gonna like
forehand.
grind you down. Like,
Yeah.
no, teams are very different.
Maybe it's Villarmoller and Ivanov just at the top grinding away. Like it's just how consistent they are on both wings. And then again, it's like on the right day, I don't know if they're the best player on their teams because this Cal team's really good. They're
Yeah.
really deep. Like they are going to be a tough out in Athens against Georgia. We'll talk about that match here in a little bit. Last two in this category here quickly. USC Trojans. We said, again, they were facing a shorthanded San Diego, so the opportunity for them to earn an impressive 4-0 victory was there. They took it, Jay. Like they probably win this match 7-0 if you play everything out everywhere. That was a really impressive day for the Trojans. What stood out to you?
Well, I'm not sure I would have this one in this category
Okay.
after San Diego loses De Los Harris, but certainly for USC to go out there, get the job done. They've lost to the San Diego team, of
Mhm.
course. So, yeah, impressive in that regard. But in terms of where I was, these other teams where I was like, gosh, they're looking like real good, just a little tough to tell. I think the level of competition was a little weaker in this match, but I think it's great that Naomi Chung is back in that lineup for USC. That could be a huge difference maker for them. So, yeah, they looked really good, but I kind of expected them to get through this 4-0.
Yeah, I guess that was the difference for me is I still had some doubts. And yeah, they were heavily favored, but is this team top 8 good? Are they top 16 good? Or are they more a borderline top 16 team? I think there were times when they fit into all three categories throughout the course of this year. And again, they were the team that got out of that ridiculously difficult Tennessee
Tennessee.
regional of the kickoff weekend. And like since then, obviously the Michigan win, but a lot of status quo for these Trojans. And for them to earn three straight set wins in singles, like Snow Han, a really good 2-3 win at one. Emmy Haddad was particularly impressive at five in her 4-1 win, and then Cayetano continuing to do her thing. And I believe she got moved up in the lineup for this weekend, if memory serves me correct,
Yep.
Jay. Um, like they needed a win like this, right? Because now that you've blitzed San Diego, who also beat you earlier in the season, you can say, hey, we're better than we were when we played Pepperdine earlier in the year. Like we are a better version of that team. Again, what if Naomi Chung is healthy? She's listed at 8 right now, and they just throw her at 6, Jay. Like that, I guess to me is why they're in the that was impressive category because it was like, hey, you won this match how you should have. And so, okay, you're playing well. Let's roll out the balls and see how you do against Pepperdine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think the Naomi Chung stuff is very interesting because of how they would match up with Pepperdine at number 6. It's a winnable match for any team left in this tournament against Pepperdine. And so certainly USC will be looking for that one as well. But I think you're right. It's more about the belief that this instilled in the USC team and the ability to go out there and get it done and advance to another Sweet 16.
Yeah, excited to see it. And then how about UCLA 4-0, Jay, over Texas Tech? I'll never get my thumb properly on the scale for what this team is this season, but 4-0 win tells me they're looking impressive come postseason play.
Yeah, probably a little disappointed after their Pac-12 showing where they
Yeah.
lost the semifinal to Cal and they came out in that regional weekend and hardly dropped games in that first round matchup and looked good against what we thought was going to be a very sneaky Texas Tech team. So yeah, they're looking good. We'll have to see. That's a very interesting Sweet 16.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, then last but not least, last two categories here. And again, we don't have to spend too much time with these matches because we're going to talk about these teams here in a little bit. Drop doubles and nothing else. That's the next category. And in that category, Georgia Bulldogs is where I'm going to start. They dropped the doubles against Florida State. 6-0 win at 3, but they dropped the 1 and 2 spots. And I talked to Drake Bernstein about that today. And, he was impressed with how his team certainly responded in singles. How could you not be? They come out, they get 4 pretty definitive straight set victories. Vidmanova, Vecic look really good at the 1 and 2 spot. Gigi Grant won her first set in like 9 minutes and ultimately gets a straight set. Mina Rundorn, who is clearly the choice at that 6 spot for the Bulldogs, rewarding that choice. Straight set victory for her there. Like they were fighting back after Lapata Riasco dropped first sets at 3 and 4 as well. Again, disappointing that they dropped the doubles, considering that's been a point of emphasis and a place they've really improved all season long. But man, it's like again, I think the biggest takeaway for me from this match is how hard it's not only going to be to beat them on court, but the crowd in Athens, just the barking, Jay, point after point after point. that Georgia team's real tough, and they're starting to look like we thought they would in singles.
Yeah, I think particularly with Vidmanova, I feel like that win over Stoyana like elevated her to the next level. She's been playing excellent tennis. It's a great win over Vic Allen. But yeah, they look really good. They're a really, really good team. I don't
Yeah.
know why we're not seeing Icicle Mert more in the lineup. You saw a lot of lineup switches during these first two rounds, if nothing else, to get freshmen some action in NCAAs and get them acclimated to that environment if you're building for the program. That one continues to confound me, but overall, Georgia looks great, and it's going to be a very interesting match with Cal.
I haven't played that many different permutations of the lineup, Jay. I think they've played like four doubles pairings this year in dual match play, and it feels like every match we've seen Gigi and Mai in those 5 and 6 spots as well. And hey, man, maybe if you know you like what you got, you roll with your six. Like, and if you can't knock it, obviously, again, haven't done much losing really since the month of January ended for Georgia, since that national indoors ended as well. And so again, nice bounce back from them. Same thing from Pepperdine. They dropped the doubles point, and yeah, that's definitely concerning given that's been a struggle for them for about half a month, excuse me, a month now consecutively. But JT and Savannah still looked really good at that top spot, and all the top three did their heavy lifting and looked impressive. I think Redlick and Campana continue to play better ball, and feels like they're comfortable. All right, we're going Vivian Yang at that number 6 spot. And again, she's playing better tennis, certainly, as the season has progressed. 4-1 victory for them. They knock out Arizona State. Obviously, Arizona State, I'm blanking on her name. It's been a long day. I apologize. But their head coach announcing her retirement today after 40
Coach
years on the
Sheila.
job. Yeah, Coach Sheelan. Again, congratulations to her on a fantastic career. Thoughts for the Pepperdine Waves as they advance to the round of 16?
I feel like I've seen Savannah Brothers and Jonas Chen lose or be losing in more doubles matches in the last month than I've seen in their entire career. So doubles is certainly a concern for them moving forward, but they got the job done. I wouldn't expect anything different than this 4-1 Arizona State win.
Yeah, I agree. So then last but not least, let's move on to the hit the staples category because that was easy, Jay. Here are top seeds who made it look real simple on the weekend. Oklahoma State 4-0 over SMU. Miyamoto and Carrington won their first sets in like legitimately 19 minutes. And look, SMU, you have to wonder how much gas they had left in the tank after the barn burner 4-3 over Alabama in round one. But yeah, top seeds, they're awake, Jay, as postseason play begins.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
They looked good.
yeah. All right. Stanford 4-0 over LSU. Did you end up making your way to the match? What'd you think?
I didn't. In this match, it got delayed. So unfortunately, I couldn't make it out. We actually got some weather here this weekend. So both those Cal matches and the Stanford matches were delays. So I didn't make it out. I would have gone if they were looking at a threat of losing because it would have been the last match at Topi Tennis Center. But we get one more. So, they played around with the lineup. They felt very comfortable, clearly. So yeah, they look good.
Yeah, and by the way, weather was a big factor, by the way, everywhere across the
Huge.
country this weekend. Rain and then more rain. Certainly was fun to deal with. UNC moved indoors 4-0. They knock out Wisconsin. Not that tough weekend for Tatum Evans, who both matches just didn't seem to bring her best tennis. But again, other than that, I thought the Tar Heel seniors looked really good to start the tournament.
Yeah, very comfortable. They've been here many years. They always look good in these early rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Virginia 4-0 for Princeton, who had grinded out a 4-3 win over Washington the day prior. Who's looking good to start postseason play?
Yeah, just continuing an incredible season for Virginia.
Yeah, it really has been like sneakily incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if they advance to the quarterfinals, this is an incredible coaching job by Coach O'Leary to do it without Emma Navarro. Because when they had Emma, it was like a point and a half on the board every time, and they don't have that all-star player this year. Very impressive.
Yeah, are on the short list of best teams in Virginia women's tennis history. Like I think they have put themselves in that conversation. And who do you think has a better chance to win right now the tournament? Virginia men or women?
Virginia men.
Yeah, I think that's the answer still too. But I'm just saying, like, it's a fun conversation to have. NC State 4-0 over Old Dominion is last in this category. Now, again, Old Dominion, dramatic 4-3 win over South Carolina to advance to round two. Really impressive stuff from the Monarchs. But NC State doubles and 3 straight set victories indoors in the regional final. They looked pretty good in their opening weekend of play.
Yeah, no funny business from NC State this weekend.
Yeah, doubles points and 3 singles wins. It's amazing how nice that makes life as a combination. That's everything from your regional finals. Now, there are still a bunch of first round matches that I think are worth, excuse me, wrong category there for those on the live show. Some first round matches still worth discussing here, Jay, just before we move on quickly. Old Dominion 4-3 over South Carolina, SMU 4-3 over Bama, Princeton 4-3 over Washington. Arizona State does get a final NCAA win for Coach Sheila as they get a 4-3 win over Northwestern, and then LSU 4-3 over Baylor. Any of those in particular feel like worth exploring before we wrap up our opening weekend thoughts?
Well, the Old Dominion South Carolina was probably the biggest upset by ranking. You had an Old Dominion team that was outside the top 60 over a top 20 team in South Carolina. So a huge upset by the Monarchs, who are actually pretty familiar with this NCAA tournament, and that 60 outside the top 60 is not where they normally find themselves. I like SMU. We talked about them all season, just the incredibly tough schedule that they played. They make their first NCAA second round since 2011. Now they're going to be in the ACC next year. So we're going to see a lot more of SMU. So yeah, there were some good first rounds. Those two stood out to me.
It's a really fun opening weekend. As we established at the top, any sort of storyline you were looking for, you certainly were treated to. But Jay, with that all in the books now, obviously our Sweet 16 is set, and you look at the Sweet 16 field we have. I love these matchups. There's some really, really good ones across the board. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk NCAA Sweet 16 matchups. I have 3 categories for us. I've got the clear your calendar. I've got what version do we get? And I've got the clear favorites. Which category do you want to start with?
Oh, we got to start with the clear your
I
calendar
agree, and there's one match
for
above all
200,
else.
Alex.
Yeah, one match above all else in the clear your calendar category. It is again a rematch of the 2023 National Indoor Semifinals. The answer: what is Texas A&M versus UNC for 200, Jay? Because man, like round of 16, we're getting that matchup. Pick it out of a hat. Stoyana and Kupris versus reigning NCAA champs Crawley Tangillig at 1 doubles. If the lineups are played as submitted, Scotty undefeated, Stoyana 1 in the country at 1, Crawley, Brandstein, battle of the seniors at 2. Heck, I'm really excited for the contrast of styles in Perez Yarlagata if that's your matchup at 5. Like, I think that's going to be a really fun battle there. Man, I mean, Kieran Tangillig in
Tran
Kupris,
Kupris
Tran,
is
like
very interesting.
that's the biggest unknown to me because I have no idea which way that match is going. Even Morales, pick your freshman for UNC at 6, whomever they play, and I don't know
Yeah.
who the better matchup is against Morales. I think that's an open question. All 7 points are going to be thrilling. My analysis is very bland and boring. I'll let you get into the weeds further. It's just like win the doubles point because I don't know if either team. I don't care if you're at home. I don't know if either team's going to be able to find 4 singles wins, Jay, in this matchup with the depth we have everywhere. What do you see? What you read?
Well, for people who don't have full context, the reason why this match I think is so much more interesting for us is because that ITA indoor semifinal between North Carolina and Texas A&M, the
Mwah!
level was so high. It was so clear that those were the two best teams in the country
Yeah.
at that point in time. Carson Brandstein goes down with injury in March, and we don't see that Texas A&M team. They make the NCAA quarterfinal, but we didn't get that outdoor rematch that we were really looking for. And now, fast forward, there's been a lot of time, a lot of differences. You have a Reese Brantmeyer injury, you have a Carson Brandstein coming back in, but it makes for a matchup between two teams with the majority of those players who played in that match last season. And so this is a 18-month overdue match that we are looking forward to. And it is hugely beneficial for North Carolina to play this match in Chapel Hill. But I do think Texas A&M, having gone to Athens twice this season, both in the regular season and the SEC tournament, is going to be a good training ground for this match. I agree with you. I would say there are 5 singles matches I would put in play. One I have in the UNC column, doubles I lean UNC, but other than that, this is gonna be really fun.
You would put one in, which wouldn't you put in the UNC column?
I would put Yarlagata over Perez in the UNC column.
Really?
Yeah.
What, even outdoors?
Yeah. This is a
Oh,
Perez that was even with Emma Staker. I would take Yarlagata over Staker right now.
all
And
right.
also, that's a huge gulf and experience difference.
Sure.
I mean, you can't I mean, Yarlagata, I think, I think she could steamroll that match.
Interesting. Coach Weaver calls her Lululemon. It's like I like that nickname. I'm gonna have to ask for approval to use that on the broadcast. I think that match, like, if you were asking me for a read, Scotty's undefeated and she's the Maserati, and to pick against her, especially me, I mean, you all see it. Um, doesn't feel great, but like you can't pick against Mary. She has been that good, and it's
Well,
just like it's
we
really
have to
hard to
see what
do.
happens with those lineups
Yeah,
because
that's true. That's huge.
clearly that's a much better, like, Mary versus Scotty is like the worst possible matchup for Scott.
Yeah, that's
Like,
I thought you were gonna say for Mary. A hundred
like
percent agree.
Scotty, give her Brandstein. They're going to go toe to toe, and like may the best woman win, right?
Three
Just like
sets, hour
slug it out.
45 minutes. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. Yeah,
Stoyan is really tough.
it's just that's a really interesting match too. Crawley Stoyana, by the way, like Spider-Man meme. Like, hey, good luck ripping me off this court. Um, if it is a 4-3 finish and it came down to that, it would break me mentally. Um, it is really hard to pick. Like, I'll tell you what, 6 is a spot. I think if you're A&M, you feel like with our experience, Delta, like you made the case for 5. That's a really good argument you made. I think you could say the same the other way for A&M at 6. I think that's the
Yeah,
spot they go
that's
into
when
game.
they have to have it.
100%. I also think like if UNC beats Mary, which again, like every so often we have solar eclipses too. It happens. Like I think if then at that point you're Coach Weaver, you tip your hat. You say they beat Mary, too good. Like what can we do from there? I'm trying to find a match calculus. It's
All
really
right,
hard
well,
to do.
let's go through. I
Doubles
think
and
this is
stuff.
what the
Yeah, no,
people
I'm on
want.
the call, so you go ahead.
All right, if you're North Carolina, it's doubles. Okay, you have
Okay. Well, both
Scotty.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah, both teams. like, uh, I would say if I'm North Carolina, Yarla got it 5 over Perez. I need Crawley to win. I don't care who she's up against, but like Crawley has to put a win on the board. And then
Yeah. Gets tough. I
it
think
gets this
Riley.
is
I think Riley's the person. I'm telling you, like
that's
versus
just a
Cooper's at home. Oh, it's gonna be so good.
I mean, maybe it's Riley, but it's yeah.
It could be Carson too. Like Carson comes
Well,
through
that's the
clutch in
thing.
these
That's
moments.
why the if you flip side on the Texas A&M, I actually think theirs is much more straightforward. Yes, they
Uh,
need doubles. You need Kieran, Cooperis, and Morales. Done. Like you get doubles in those three, you're done. Kieran
Okay,
has
but
looked.
that you're saying their path is without Mary and it's that straightforward. Like that's why I think
I
you
think
like
it is. Like, well, I'm
then
saying
then
that's their
don't you
best
have to
bet.
lean A&M given like how much more straightforward their pathway is, Jay? Given this assessment?
I'm not saying that those are more likely to happen. I just
It's
think the
just more
pathway,
straightforward.
like
Fair
Kieran
enough.
has looked excellent this season, except she's majorly on the downtrend over the last like 6 weeks. Carson, maybe the inverse, but that's one that like Nicole Kieran has to beat Carson Tingellig. Mia Cooper's has to beat Riley Tran, and Morales has to beat whatever freshman they throw in front of her. Like that might not happen, and then you need a Stoyana to beat Crawley, or need Stoyana to beat Scotty. But those three, I think you have to circle for Texas A&M.
Okay, fair enough. Again, I'm really looking forward to that one. You want to give me a
Under the
pick?
lights.
Yeah, under the lights, 6 p.m. Friday night. I, look, we're gonna have multiple broadcast streams. If you think I was gonna allow any other human in the world to call this match, you're freaking crazy. Who you got? Give me the pick.
You can't bet against North Carolina at home, defending national champion. And I hate to say it, but Texas A&M hasn't really stepped up in these big NCAA matches over the years. They've looked flat in their quarterfinal losses these past few years.
All right, fair enough. Again, it's number one on the list. It's number one on the power rankings, men's or women's side. Like,
A
I don't
hundred
care. Yeah,
percent.
yeah.
This
And
is the marquee match, men's or women's. I feel like this is women's basketball, where it's like this is, everyone really cares about this match.
should I have kept this in its own category? Is it insulting to this match that I put 2 other matches in it?
There's one match you put in this calendar that is an abomination to
Okay.
be in the
Well,
same category as
that
this.
you
Yes.
and I'm going to assume you're saying that it's Stanford NC State is the abomination in this category, right?
No, no,
You don't
Georgia.
think Georgia can? Oh my God. All right, so that's where we're going next because I couldn't disagree with you more. I guess first, always, even though you're the co-host. Why shouldn't Georgia Cal be in the clear your popcorn before I blow your argument away?
uh Cal's an
Let me
uninteresting
stop you
team.
right there. No, just kidding. Carry on.
Cal is a pretty uninteresting team.
Oh my God, that's
Like
crazy.
I'm not there's not a lot to like really get behind with this Cal team. They are very solid. I'm not sure they're really going to like embrace playing in this crowd. Like I could see that becoming just like an overwhelming factor for this Cal team that none of them have played in front of a crowd like what they're going to see in the Sweet 16. So I don't think this is going to be that interesting.
I think you getting to see Georgia in person and me not having to have that yet is why we have a delta maybe on this match because
I've
you got
also
to
seen
see it in
Cal
it.
in person,
This is true, and
boots on the ground.
that's why we have you on the show. And that alone. I just think you were in Athens and you got to feel that vibe, and I'm jealous that like you get to know how big of a factor that crowd is and how impactful they could be on a match like this. I think that's a very fair case to make. To call the roster that possesses Lon Me uninteresting is an affront to the 4 year partnership or 3 years, whatever we're at now, Jay, you and I. Yeah, like see, I'm gonna be very good at
I
being
don't mean
married. I'll
that
forget the honeymoon.
insulting, right? I want to
Yeah.
be clear. I don't mean it like as an insult.
Well, I
I just
am
mean like
insulted.
it's just like a very straightforward team that is not high highs, low lows. They're not overly emotional. They don't get too negative. Like there's an exception on the
But
team for sure in Lon Mi, but like other than that, like it's pretty yeah, flat.
yeah, I just why I couldn't disagree with you more is like I couldn't agree more with that assessment, and you're throwing them into Athens. Like does this shit sink or swim? Let's find out. Like, what a test for this Cal team. I think this is the sort of test I've almost been waiting for them to have all season long, and now we get to see it. And again, on paper, like I think it's Ivanov submitted at one. Her versus Vidmanova, it's a lot of athleticism on court number one. Like Vecic versus Viller-Moller at two, that match is going to go 3 hours, and if it finishes, it means this is a 4-3 finish. Like Riasco versus El Sola, that's a fun contrast. Like
Weirsham.
El Sola's Weirsham at three.
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize. Weirsham versus Riasco, like lefty versus lefty. In on that one. That El Sola's four now is crazy because she's not that far removed from being a top 10 player in the country, but like her line drive tennis versus Lapata. In on that. Who I don't know who's going to play 5 or 6 for Cal, but they can absolutely hang with GG
Yeah.
and Minor. I will say, by the way, if I find out Athens isn't nice to Lon Me, we're going to be beefing Georgia crowd. Like, be
I've put
nice.
some feelers out there. I've said we
Yeah.
need to be nice.
Okay. I just want to make sure because, again, cult classic. That's my
Mm-hmm.
girl. Like, I'll fight for her if I
Yeah.
have to. Yeah. Like, I just think the matchups are fun everywhere. And I think to beat this Cal team, Georgia will need 3 hours of Georgianess. And 3 hour of Georgianess is clear your calendars because that's the best environment in college tennis. Like this is a popcorn match.
I disagree, and I'm definitely biased from seeing them get walloped by Stanford, but their doubles point is weak. And I think
Yeah.
Georgia could take 1 and 2 actually quite quickly. And I think the bottom of the lineup is super tough. Like, there's a world where Cal takes 4, 5, and 6 against a Georgia team that has really prided themselves on 4, 5, and 6. So it could get interesting, but I think Georgia will put themselves in a unsurmountable lead pretty early on, add in the crowd. So I think to me, I worry about Cal in that crowd. So I lean Georgia pretty heavily.
Doubles 1, 2, and what? What's that final point for for Georgia?
Uh 4. Also Lopata.
If I'd have told you you made that prediction 12 months ago, you'd be like, no, I didn't. Stop it. That's nuts. I think it's gonna be a really good match, but Fair enough. We can leave that there. Last one in this category is the 2023 NCAA semifinal rematch, with Jay has no objection with being here. Contrast to personalities, like I feel like NC State's going to come out like a boxer and they're going to throw some punches. And the question is, can the overwhelming talent of Stanford withstand those punches and throw a few of their own? And what is the final match of the Toby Tennis Center? Number 2 Stanford hosting number 15 NC State. Jay, I know there's no place you will be other than that match throughout the course of it. Talk me through the read. Talk me through what you're looking forward to most. Give me your prediction.
I mean, is there a team more fitting to beat Stanford in its final match?
No.
No. This is a very scary match for Stanford. And I actually think this is the first time I feel like there have been multiple top 4 seeds that are on upset alert for me. I'm getting to my case about Oklahoma State, but like obviously North Carolina is on upset alert. I think Stanford is on upset alert. Michigan, I feel pretty good, but like, who knows? But so the reason why this match is so scary for Stanford is this NC State team loves being the underdog. They've
Yeah.
loved being the underdog against a big brother type of North Carolina. They relish this match against a Stanford team that is a perennial favorite. It starts from Coach Earnshaw, who embraces that underdog mentality, chip on his
100%.
shoulder, like to come into Stanford and beat this team, like there's no team that will embrace that more. Add in the fact that, yes, their more veteran players have been pretty volatile, but they have veteran players. So this
Uh-huh.
is a Stanford team that has lost to this team in the semifinals. But more importantly, the match calculus here is very good for NC State because the match calculus for NC State is doubles,
Mhm.
1, Ryatsky over Blake, 6, Sophie Abrams, who's now at 6 over Valencia Shu, and find one more.
Yeah.
And they can absolutely beat this team. This is going to be a very good match.
Zampardo's had a better year than Quay at 5. Like Maddie can absolutely win that match, even if pedigree wise, 2 players from the same class. That's not something you would have thought you'd ever say about the junior U.S. champion coming into the season. By the way, again, the observation, both junior slam finalists or champion from last year are now playing 5 in their lineups. Like, come on now. Speaks to where college tennis is right now. Um, you made a great point there. Like, I don't think any team, like a lot of these teams, Oklahoma State, I'm not saying they don't have a killer instinct. I'm not saying Michigan doesn't have a killer instinct. UNC's national champions, of course, they have a killer instinct. Of every team remaining in the draw, you're absolutely right. The team that if you asked, would you rather beat this team at home or would you rather beat them at their place? That would answer, we'd rather beat them at their place. Like NC State's that team. You're absolutely right. That's kind of like, no, it's more fun to make their crowd silent. Like you're absolutely right. Embracing the underdog role, a manufactured chip on their shoulder sometimes doesn't have to be manufactured in this one though, because it's like, hey, we are the 15 seeds. We don't like our seeding. And, again, they played themselves into it. You lose to Syracuse on the road. You have the sloppiness, the sloppiness against Duke after beating UNC. Like, you probably shouldn't have been a top 8 seed. Not probably, you shouldn't have been a top 8 seed. But now you get the opportunity to play one of the big dogs, and we saw it at the indoors. This team can absolutely play at a top 8 level. This team can absolutely lose doubles points and find 4 singles wins. At times this year, it felt like they almost preferred to do that, Jay. I love this match. And a younger me would be predicting NC State to pull off an upset over Stanford. Like, this does have the makings of, like, this is what this team was built to do. And here's the counter, though. Man, on paper, you look at Stanford and you're like, oh, wait, like, what? Yep is playing where? Like, Blokina is still where? Like, who's your 6 again? And,
No, but
you know,
actually look at that on paper, right? Like
yeah,
Ryatsky over Blake. You're gonna go
tangible.
Ryatsky, right?
Sure.
Sophie Abrams over Valencia Shu. Like on paper, you're gonna go Sophie Abrams.
Outdoors, it's an interesting game style, though. It's a
Sure.
really fun contrast.
Yeah. But yeah, and you look at what Zampardo has done this season
Yeah.
against
That's the
Catherine
one to me.
Way.
I
Like,
thought you were going to say that for sure. Like NC State usually ain't winning if they don't get 1 and 5.
I just think that matchup they will both like. They
Yeah.
both play hard, flat. Like they're both gonna enjoy playing that match, so it's tough to go. The one that is really interesting and is always interesting is going to be Blockina versus Dittman. Like
Yeah.
that one, I Blockina is a primetime player, so
Yeah.
I expect her to show up, but you never know.
What about
So
Zernova versus Yep? Like that's one NC State's had a lot of success with, and for Stanford, I mean, Yep's been an anchor all season long. Like if NC State gets him there, I, it's just a good match,
yeah, that
man.
ball is going like this 2 centimeters over the net every single
Yeah.
time. And we haven't even talked about Rencelli Connie Ma. What if we get, you know, round of 16,
That's what I'm
2022 Illinois Rencelli? That one is like the most in the Stanford bag for sure. Um, but yeah, I like people should pick this upset. Like
yeah.
it could very well happen. I am not going with the upset just because I think this Stanford team, it's time to step up. And you certainly don't want to be the team that loses the last match ever at Toby. But at least, so I lean Stanford, but boy, I'm excited.
And what a piece of irony that would be, all the winning they've done there over the years, and they lose their
Exactly.
final match. Yeah, that just doesn't feel
Exactly.
like it's in the cards. I think that's the cards. See what it, come on. You should have laughed there.
Well,
Yeah,
it's card, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. I laughed. Look again. This match was so exciting. You texted me. You said, "Hey, man." And I was, no, it was. This is gonna be a really good match. Like it belongs in the popcorn section. Was one we circled when the draw came out, and we get to see it play. And by the way, NC State's coming off of a dominant weekend, like their first dominant weekend, maybe of the year. And so really impressive stuff. And that's going to be a very fun match. All right, that's the clear your calendar section, Jay. Let's move next to the what version do we get? And the reason I called this section what version do we get is we'll go back to the draw here now. Is I think it some of these teams can be a little Mickey Mouse is a little bit too strong, but again, there's different iterations of these groups, and I think depending on which version of these teams we get will dictate how we see these matches play. Again, UCLA, Texas. What Texas do we get? Do we get a healthy Sabina Zainalova, who in match number one, yeah, she lost to Carol Lee, but she played Carol Lee, All-American in first match back. That's a tough ask for anyone. Obviously, another big test coming in TN at one for UCLA. Like, again, this category was built for UCLA because I just can't really put my finger on who they are match in, match out. Obviously, these two teams sort of saw each other early in the year, but Texas only able to field 4 players in that one. And as assistant coach Justin Butch told me, 4 players was a stretch, as Vivian was very, very sick during the match as well. It's in LA, like, so in that sense, advantage Bruins. But man, I've seen Texas win this postseason match 3 years consecutively. Like last year against Pepperdine, kind of epitomizing that. It's a really good one, Jay. What's your read? What's your lean?
Well, there's a big difference this year, and that's that Texas is on the road for this Sweet 16 match. So we haven't
Very
really
fair.
seen what this Texas team has looks like. This is the hardest match. Going really out on a limb here and saying the 8-9 matchup is the hardest match to pick for me. But UCLA has always been so good at home. They always find ways to pull this off. I think what I like about UCLA is their doubles has been really strong, and Fungren is winning that match at 1. And so that's 2 points on the board. They're at home. It's really tough to pick against a postseason Texas, but I think I have to do it because I think UCLA is really going to chomp at the bit to get a rematch with Oklahoma State.
And by the way, my hashtag when in doubt, pick the team at home theory. I didn't hate how it played out in weekend number one. Well, this is really, though, this weekend is where the real test comes. So I don't hate the logic behind that pick either. I think Pepperdine USC belongs in this category as well. Certainly for Pepperdine, are we getting the team that blew through Auburn, blew through Florida, whose top 3 blows through everyone, and whose doubles point is that 4th point they always need when doing the match calculus? Or are we getting the team that drops doubles and now all of a sudden things gets a little bit dramatic? Yeah, Reddick is usually there to provide a 4th point as well, but again, you can attack them at 6. You can attack them at doubles. Savannah, after having that knee injury about a month ago, does seem to have recovered, and her, JT, Lisa looked really good in the opening weekend. But, again, they're not an unfamiliar opponent to this USC team that knows exactly what they're dealing with. And by the way, this category could also describe USC not just metaphorically, but literally. Who do we get for USC? How healthy will they be? What does their lineup look like? Do we get the return of Naomi Chung? If we do, now you can start talking yourself into some match calculus for the Trojans, who, by the way, said it from the start of the year, have always enjoyed how well they play doubles this season. No exception against San Diego this past weekend. Jay, this kind of epitomizes the what version do we get region. What's your lean? Who you picking?
We saw this match last year in the second round. This year, we're getting it as a round of 16.
Yeah. When we've already
I,
seen it twice this year, by the way, national
well, yeah, we
indoors,
always, yeah,
regulars. Yeah, but just a
yeah,
reminder, 2-0 Pepperdine on the year. The corollary, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in one season.
yeah, it is. It's also really hard to beat a team in the Sweet 16 at home, which is what USC would have to do.
My two
Uh,
rules going head to head.
Although I do think it is beneficial to go on the road at a place that you know pretty well. USC has played at Malibu a ton of times, so it's not like you're going to completely foreign territory. I have to lean Pepperdine here just because I think they find ways at the top of the lineup to get through, the same way they have in the the past few matches. But I think Southern California could make it interesting at 5 and 6.
I think
Which
the comp, by the way, for Pepperdine is 2019 Wake. Like the amount of Borna Petros Bar I see in Lisa, JT, and Sav, I haven't talked about it enough this season, and I should have. But like that's my best comp of the show.
That's a good comp. Yeah,
You
there's a
knew I was gonna put. Yeah.
UCLA men comp in there as well,
Oh, how
probably.
about a 2021 UCLA
Yeah,
comp of
exactly. It's
Alicia,
more,
Jada, and Abby? Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good one
Um,
too.
and yeah, we'll see. I think Pepperdine does get through this one. Interesting to note they moved their Janice Chen and Lisa Czar. So Lisa Czar back up to 1, Janice Chen down to 2. So we'll see.
Let's play lineups. That's half the fun. Last but not least in this category, Michigan, Miami. Like this one's a tough one to get a read on because again, Michigan struggled with a Notre Dame team that obviously beat Miami indoors a couple of weeks ago, but still, like it's just two different styles of tennis, complete contrast. You have the subplot, obviously, Ronnie, who was an NCAA doubles champion and multi-time All-American during her playing career at Miami. Now she gets to face her former squad. Um, I like that storyline as a nerd of the history, as you all heard in
It's
our
a
interview
fantastic
with her.
one.
Yeah, obviously Alexa Noel, Kari Miller, top 10 battle at 1. Like, come on now, sign me up for that. I think doubles wise, like both these teams have had their moments all season long. I don't think you can feel definitively though one way or another after how each played in the opening weekend. I mean, like you'd take Charney at 6, given that's who she's been all season long, but like, man, all the matchups are pretty good everywhere. I'm excited for this one. Like, I mean, again, you probably lean Michigan at 2 and 3 just because Gala, Julia have been better than Fenning and whomever plays 3, I Balsard or I think is the number 3 for Miami of late. But like, man, this is gonna be a fun one, Jay. Especially just given where these two teams are coming off of the opening weekend. What's your read on it?
Well, my read is Michigan continues to take advantage of somewhat of a softer draw here. This is a great match
Oh
for
yeah.
them. I think they're going to roll. I think they are going to recover pretty well from that Notre Dame match, realize that they do need to step it up. But I do think we'll learn a lot about this Michigan team on whether or not they can win it all this season. I think they'll need to put in a really solid performance to do that. If they don't, then there's a lot of questions. But yeah, I really don't have many doubts about Michigan here. I think even that top match, like Kari Alexa, that's a DNF for sure. But
That's what
yeah,
I thought about Galis Alexa. I guess it went 4-3, so there were no DNFs. I'm just like postseason Alexa. We haven't gotten to see that much of it. I'm excited. Like there's no world where Miami wins without her beating Kari at 1. Like she has been an anchor for them all season long, as you would expect the All-American to be. That's a really fun matchup. Like one of the top 3 individual matchups we probably have on the weekend. Um, yeah, look, the thing if you're Michigan is this match is on your racket. Like Miami, other than Nong at 5, who can really hurt you in a bunch of different ways, like Miami kind of says, all right, how good are you today, opponent? Because if you are very good, you could beat us. If you're not very good, we're going to beat you. And if that makes sense, Jay.
well, you're calling them pushers.
No, I mean, yes,
Yeah.
but yeah, reactive.
Mm.
That's a better word. Reactive. I mean, look, Bach Collins just gets you in the torture chamber. You know what? I'm not going to defend my take. We're going to move on. You're taking Michigan to advance.
I am.
All right. Last but not least, then let's get to the clear-cut favorites here. Oklahoma State. Nope. Excuse me. I'm going to learn how to push buttons eventually here. I promise. But Oklahoma State taking on Tennessee. I have them in the clear favorites just because they're undefeated. They're at home. And look, as excited as your text made me, I still think Oklahoma State is a favorite at all 7 points. And I just think if you're a favorite at all 7 points, you're a clear favorite. Now, again, I think Tennessee can also win all 7 points. Like the gap and the delta is not that big to where I'd be like, oh, Obi's for sure winning at 2. Oh, Novak is for sure taking another match at 6. Like Tennessee is legitimately good enough to push Oklahoma State everywhere. I still think in Stillwater they have to be considered a clear favorite. But you've been licking your chops to talk about this match, Jake. Can you make the Tennessee case for me?
Look, I'm not going to disagree on a clear favorite. You have an
Yeah.
undefeated team against the number 16 team in the country. Here's why I think narratively Oklahoma
Mm.
State could lose this match.
Okay, lay it on me.
We've talked about Oklahoma State being like this round of 16 middle weekend is like circle it on the calendar. Like it's like limbo land. You're not
Yeah.
really there yet, but like you're
Yeah.
kind of there. And this team, they're like this is the match where like they could go awry. They expect to beat Tennessee, and this is the match where maybe there's not the full force of the fans out there yet. Like so, like is part of the calendar. This is a concerning one. They don't have a match to play into this one. This one is potentially tricky. So that's just like big picture.
I get it.
I'm
Continue.
not
Sorry.
done. So Sophia
Good.
Cabe
I was
Sophia
like, hold on, can I just say, I was like, if that's the entirety of
no
your case, I need
no no
more.
no
Good,
no
good,
no
good,
that's not
good.
it.
That's
Sophia
A.
that's part of the big picture.
Yeah, okay.
Sophia Cabezas has been excellent for
Yeah.
Tennessee at won multiple top 10 wins. And she is a transfer from Iowa State. You talk about
Mm.
someone that is like not going to care about playing Oklahoma State and probably really dislikes Oklahoma State. Sophia Cabezas, who against a Komar, who if anyone is going to fall prey to that, like this isn't really the biggest match of your season, it's going to be Komar, who has lost a lot of those matches, actually, upwards of 6 matches,
Lost a set
where
to Taylor Johnson last weekend.
she's might lose a set to every player for the duration of the tournament. She might still win, but she's probably going to drop a set. And so Sophia Capezas back in Stillwater, familiar with this team, familiar with these elements, like not going to have an issue playing this and is really going to relish playing a top 15 opponent in Anastasia Komar the same way she's taken upsets over Amelia Raetsky. No,
Subplot to that, also just to add to that bullet point, she's facing a former teammate in Obi Kajuru on the other side. You know what you hate doing is losing to your former teammates if you have an opportunity to play against them. That's just a pride thing kicking in and adds to your Cabezas argument.
well,
Carry on.
that carries into my
Yeah,
next argument, which is Alana Wolfberg,
sure.
former player for Oklahoma State, now on the Tennessee lineup. You know what she's not going to be happy about? Not being on this Oklahoma State lineup and potentially winning a national championship. There's a world where she absolutely beats Lucia Pyre at number 3, who is going to be pretty uncomfortable playing a player that when you came in as a freshman was your senior. That's not a fun matchup. So those are two I absolutely circle. I know you're big on the Christina Novak train. She hasn't lost a match all season. You know what kind of game style you don't see at 6? Adesina. That's going to be a tough matchup for Christina Novak. That slice, that coming in. Christina Novak likes ball machine tennis, and she's not going to get ball machine tennis from Adesina. I'm just saying, overall, Elsa Tomase is playing much better tennis. Tough matchup with Kajuru. I'm not saying she's going to win it. She's going to put up a really good fight. I'm just saying, if Tennessee takes this match, don't be surprised.
Jay, you made a very good case. I thought that was really well done. I think there's nothing to add on that note. The only response is they're 29-0. And that's not to belittle your argument. It's just like that's why you don't need to make an Oklahoma State argument. Like to your point.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to hear the Tennessee case because it's like, yeah, you know what the case is for Oklahoma State. You know how good they are everywhere. I could not agree with your argument more. Like, I think this is a real, like, all right, if Oklahoma State flexes 4-0 on Tennessee here, it means that on switch, off switch that we talked about all season along, it's on. Like they know the task ahead of them. They're ready. Like this is a great litmus test. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm really happy Tennessee is playing well going into it too, because like, and I said this at the start, they could have beaten A&M in College Station last year. Like they were right there. And this is a team now back-to-back Sweet 16. Shout out to your tweet. Hadn't done that since '04. Like there will be some confidence in this group, some belief. They're very experienced everywhere as well. Roll the balls out. Let's play. Again, Oklahoma State has to be the favorite, but I love your Tennessee path. Do you have an impassionate defense for Vanderbilt as well, or is Virginia the clear-cut favorite here? I feel like Virginia's made a living off of winning this match this season.
Yeah, they have, and they've only lost to two teams in
Yeah,
Michigan and North Carolina. So yeah, they have literally made a living off of beating everyone ranked below them. Yeah, I mean the only thing for Vanderbilt here is the match calculus is actually pretty favorable. If CB Moore and Bridget Samuel play the way they played against Ohio State, and you get the best versions of them, they can absolutely beat Hibashake and Annabelle Shu at that 1 and 2 spots. And Holly Staff at 5. It's a tough match with Travinsky, but it's winnable as well. But I do think that I would be pretty surprised if Virginia didn't find a path to 4 here.
Problem is Virginia's so good at doubles. So like you feel pressure, like you have to have a Michigan lineup. You have to have a UNC lineup to be like, we can find 4 singles victories against them if we need to. It has Staff and CB Moore have been 2 points in every Vanderbilt success story so far this year. So if you're making the match calculus at home, they got to take 1 and 5. Those are the spots that they have to attack. And good luck beating Travinsky at 5 if your name's not Lily Jones this season. Yeah, it's a tough pathway. That said, like they're loose, they get to swing freely, and they just beat Ohio State in Columbus. And you know what the best feeling in the world is? When you wake up that next day and you go, hey, we get to have another day of practice. Like our season gets to keep going, and can't fake that freedom. They're playing with house money now at this point, and you do wonder, this Virginia team's never been a favorite in a match like this, right? Like they've flirted with round of 16 quarterfinals these last half decade with Coach O'Leary, but favorite in this scenario, that's not where I've ever seen them be. I'm excited to see how they respond to that pressure in Charlottesville. It's the only, by the way, college town that's hosting both the men's and women's super regional action as well, and it should be a really fun environment. But yeah, I guess the problem for Vanderbilt is it just feels like their pathway's so narrow in
Mhm.
that matchup with how good Virginia's been everywhere. So I do think of the clear favorites, this is the clearest of the clear favorites in the round of 16.
Yeah, but Vanderbilt has surprised us before, but I agree. I think Virginia will get through it. And I forget who they played in the round of 16 in 2022 when they also made the quarterfinals, but they were probably a favorite there. I think they were a top 8 seed, so they've had
Well, they
some
played
experience.
Texas, so that was the 4-5, if memory serves me correctly. Um, Man, who did Virginia play to advance there? I bet they played Princeton in round 2, Jay. I
Yeah,
feel
well,
pretty confident in
yeah,
that bet. But
lock that
anyways,
one in.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like and by the way, I think it's gonna be a really good round of 6. Let me ask you this. Over under 1.5 4 threes.
Oh, give me the over. Come on.
Okay. What if I
Yeah.
made it 2.5?
Well, now I'm just hoping that it's the over.
I like that. Fair enough. Well,
I'll go 2. That feels about right.
yeah, I agree. Well, again, folks, that's your look at rounds 1 and 2 and your preview of round 3 of this 2024 NCAA tournament. Now, quickly, very quickly, before we go, Jay, portal season. And I wanted to do something very fun here just before we wrapped up. I know we're still thinking 2024, but who are your most interesting teams to watch here as we approach portal season and this off season with 2025 looming on the horizon?
Most interesting teams to watch.
Yeah, just the ones where it's just, again, I don't need any names or specific rumors, but you're like, hey, I'm kind of monitoring what they do this offseason because they kind of need to make some moves. Like, for instance,
Oh, well,
I feel like North Carolina, like, yeah, they recruit so well, and Evans and Radman and Tangillig are back, and that's a good nucleus to build around. But like, where are they going to find players? Like at a certain point, like I feel like it wouldn't shock me to see a transfer or two head the way of UNC, and again, a program like that, or I'm just trying to think who else there. I mean, Texas is what I'm interested. Do you make a Maya joint like protection move, knowing like, hey man, she keeps winning, and I don't know if we're
yeah.
gonna get her, so do we make something here now? Um, Obviously. there have been some announcements of some players who are on the portal already, and we can get into them if you'd like. But are there any teams in particular you're watching for here at the start of the offseason?
Yeah, I'm going to go in a totally different direction
I
just
love that.
because I I agree with some of the things you mentioned, but I don't know if there's going to be a ton of like top tier
Yeah.
portal entries that like a North Carolina is going to have room for or really need. So I'm actually going to go Baylor. And Baylor is
Ooh.
hosting the 2025 NCAA team championships. This is the playbook that we saw from Oklahoma State. This is a well funded program that is hosting the NCAA team championships and did not look good this season. And so has to bring in a lot of new players if they want to make a run. If they don't bring in a portal haul, a freshman haul, like it's almost like a dereliction of duty in that case. So that's a team I would absolutely be looking for.
Yeah. I'm also, I see it in the chat. Oklahoma State might need to replace all six starters. Like there's a world where they all go pro. Lucia, Obi, Komar with the 3 5th years as well. I don't think that's going to be the case, but man, what does that team look like next year? Like it has been an all in on 2024 mindset, justifiably as they're hosting. But always a team to watch given what they did last season at this time of year, right? So
Yeah.
certainly I'd put them on the short list too.
Auburn's on the short list as well.
Yeah.
You expect Jordan Sabo is probably going to try and clean up in the transfer portal to ensure, they lose Ansari, they lose Arsenault. So we'll have to see on that team. Let's see. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked it.
Yeah.
Every so often I like to
But
throw a real one at you.
yeah, but I don't think, I don't know if there's going to be big portal hauls this year.
Yeah, it's fair. I guess like what about a team like Michigan that you feel like with Julia, Lily, Piper, Reese coming back, like they're one piece away. Like you feel like if you could find them a four singles player for next year, why couldn't they run it back and be top eight once again in the first year of the Big Ten, right? With all the new schools entering.
Yeah,
By
but
the way, yeah.
that's like a one piece thing. I think when we're
But that's
talking
why it's
about the
interesting because it's like
yeah.
I think on the portal this year there might only be a one piece ad. Like we might only be getting fours this year instead of one singles players making these big jumps, right? And so that would be another line of thinking of like who's a team who's a piece away. I think they would be one I would think of. I mean, Stanford and Georgia are the front runners of the 2025 preseason poll. Spoiler alert, folks. Um, but
Yeah,
like, yeah, who's another team that, but maybe an A&M, like maybe one more piece because they're bringing back a lot as well. What
yeah,
Kieran?
they have a good
Yeah,
recruiting class as well. But
yeah, exactly. Oh
does
yeah,
Mary Stoyana stay for her senior year? That would be a
sure.
question. They definitely are losing Brandstein. So yeah,
Are they? Are we sure Carson doesn't have one more?
I
Um,
mean, she technically would.
Yeah, I love this sport. Let them all play. You know my thoughts. Yeah, it's just it's always this is the best time. And by the way, now like Michigan assistant coach opening, Texas A&M
Well,
assistant.
that didn't seem very open after your interview with Coach Ronnie.
Yeah, it's my job.
That's your
Um,
mom's.
yeah, and it's just I'm not ready to lose her to
No,
that.
but in all
Um,
seriousness, it did seem
yeah,
like Ronnie had a candidate in
I
mind.
can't. Yeah, but still, like that's a job. Texas
Arizona
A&M
State.
head coaching job
There
open.
you go.
Texas A&M assistant job. It's a good job, even where that program is in athletics. They've always invested in at that school, so certainly one to watch.
That's
I mean,
a
again,
yeah.
these are the opening
Next.
dominoes, but I'm just saying, like the dominoes are starting to fall, Jay, which means it's time for us to get busy, and do our jobs appropriately and make sure that not every scoop belongs to Parsa. That said, that's all I got for you today. Obviously, really excited to continue our coverage coming up this weekend. We'll have coverage for you Friday and Saturday of, I believe, 12 of the 16, or maybe we're up to 13 now because I think Wake opted in. So I think we have 13 of the 16 host matches, everything but Columbia, Stanford, and UCLA. So 13 of the 16 across our YouTube channel Friday, Saturday. Of course, I'm going to continue to crank out Sweet 16 press row interviews on the Cracked Interviews channel. I believe our first 15 already released today. Shout out to West Duff who had some serious work. Public service announcement. The audio on the Steve Denton interview is awful. Like I just apologize in advance. We tried to salvage it the best we can, but anyways, that's all I got for public service announcements. You got anything, Jay, before we wrap tonight's show?
Well, if you're not gonna have Stanford, I'll try and cover it on my Instagram. No ad, no problem. You can of course watch the stream, but I'll be boots on the ground there. Gosh, two questions for you.
Okay.
One, when's the last scoop you had?
Two. I gave
Two,
him a middle finger for those
okay,
listening on the
for
podcast.
those listening.
Okay, the last scoop I had or the last one I was publicly willing to share?
Well, it doesn't matter if you have it if you don't share it, right? Like
That's
it's not a scoop.
yeah. It's tough now. I ask all these coaches for 32 interviews. They tell me some things afterwards. I can't share them all.
There you go. So
Yeah.
speaking of those coaches, how many of the coaches, let's say you've done 15, how many of them
Last time I
boldface?
broke a scoop. Hold on. First of all, don't think that's gonna fly. That was really fucking funny. Sorry for swearing, everyone. Carry on. Number two.
Let's say you've done 15 interviews. How many of them have boldface lied to you?
In the interview,
Mm-hmm.
15. That's
Okay.
come on. That's I
All right.
mean, but I know that. Going.
I,
No, you know what? 14. And here's why I say 14. Because Josh Goffey lied to me, but he's such a good human being that he couldn't hold the lie through the end of the show because can I give you a spoiler? Have you listened to that
I
one?
haven't listened to it. Yeah.
Okay, do you want the spoiler or
Sure.
do you want to
Yeah.
find out why in the episode? You know what? I'll give it to you. So I'm asking a trivia question of all of these coaches who are the last undefeated champions.
Mhm.
And after a dramatic pause of, we'll say, 30 seconds, Goffey drops it exactly. And my bullshit detector has never gone off quicker. I was like, hold on, what's going on here? And he goes, look, someone might have leaked to me that I'm going to get asked this question. And here's the thing. First of all, he owned up to it, like, which is just like describe Josh Goffey in an action is to pull a prank like that and to be like, no, I need to be honest with you, that wasn't real. Like, just a great human being. But two, did his homework. Like, that's why I don't think it's technically cheating. Like, don't hate the play, I hate the game. He came in prepared, ready for what was going to be asked. Like, he's the leader in the clubhouse right now, Jay.
Well, someone did his homework for him, it sounds like, but yeah, he was still prepped and ready to go. But no, the reason I ask is because that's my new favorite game when I listen to these is like clock the lie. And so I was curious to see how much clocking you were doing in these interviews.
I'm going to say 13 because I don't think Ronnie lies to me. But I would never ask her a question to put her in a position to lie to me either. Because that's what I maneuver. You think she lied to me?
Well, she kind of told on herself and she was like, I've been following the Miami program super closely. And then it's like, I don't know the Miami girls at all. Like, I got to
Okay.
do my research. We really got, and I was like, okay, I think you kind of know who they are.
Well, there's a difference between following a program and following specifics. But I catch
yeah,
your drift. Yeah, look,
yeah.
that last question is one I always play with doing the NCAA preview. That's why I've tried to be like, all right, here's my take. What do you think? Because you're only going to get so much honesty out of a coach who doesn't want to piss anyone off and all the different politics that they have to play in those answers. I will say most have been very good about the three all set on the line. Who do you want? Now, the answers typically give me my number one player in my lineup, which again, we'll have to adjust for accordingly next year when we curve these questions, Jay. But I've enjoyed them so far. What say you?
Yeah, I think they've been fun. I've listened to four. I think the one I don't like and actually really grinds my gears is the question about are there any favorites? Like, I'm really tired of people being like, everyone can win. Like, there is not a favorite. It's like, okay, there are a
That's
few
not what I asked.
there are a
Yeah.
few strategies here. One is like, why wouldn't you throw a team under the bus and be like, I can't believe how much pressure Ohio State has to win their first NCAA title. Wow, that's really tough. But most of them are just like, yeah, anyone can win. You know, all these 16 teams can. So that one I don't like.
Yeah. I really loved Andreas' answer. And by the way, I don't know if you've listened to that one yet, but we had a lot of fun.
I
It
got some
was,
spoilers on it, but I haven't listened.
yeah, because I can guess who you got the spoilers from. Um, and it was very fun because I was like, again, you were on one of the undefeated teams. What was it like? And he goes, man, it was hard. Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't ask. It's almost impossible. And there was just again a moment of honesty that I really appreciated from Coach, which is why we always like having him on the show. Um, look, I'm gonna keep throwing the hanging softball up there for them to hit that pitch if they'd like to do it. And there has been a lot of talk about undefeated Oklahoma State as these interviews have progressed, but Sweet 16 press row, Cracked Interviews podcast. Go take a listen. No ad, no problem. A lot of good content throughout this postseason. Sincerely, if you're not listening to Jay's work and Ethan and the whole crew, every guest you have on as well, it's it's the second best show in college tennis. It would be nice if they broke some scoops every once in a while, but you don't see that, folks, either. Anyways, um, That's true. I'm trying to think. What was the last scoop you broke? You had Elena Portal, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if that was scoop, but
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that
yeah.
counts.
Your last one was that US Open one you did with Ben Rothenberg.
Oh, I know. And you know what? I took so much shit for that I was like,
Really?
I don't.
Never, no scoops again.
We'll talk about it off mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the story for that afterwards. I miss the scoop business. Yeah, believe me, I think about it all the time. Anyways, with that said, shout out to you, John Parsons. Hour 40 minutes. I think this is our longest show of the year, and I feel like it's only gonna get longer as this postseason carries on. So stick with us, folks. We'll be back tomorrow night to break down all the men's action. For now, though, a thank you to you, Jay, for joining me. A thank you, of course, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, for the job he does, making everything possible. With that said, for the fantastic John J. Parsons, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, and all of us here at both Cracked Rackets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Jay, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone.